Haman once again felt Ina's belly. "Take care of my son," he said. Ina could not look at him. She was too afraid. How was she going to survive in the outer world, in Arid, without him, without Ryu, without even Jashin? Ina went to speak, but a huge crash shook them both. Ina and Haman immediately stood and glared at the crater made in front of them. Ina was holding on to Haman as tight as she could. Out of the crater climbed a tall, well-built man. His white leather uniform was dirty and burned. He dusted himself off and said, simply, "Haman." "How good to see you," he said. "Gin," replied Haman. Haman turned and looked at Ina. She could see the indigo in his eyes beginning to glow. The wind was picking up. She could feel it cutting into her skin. Haman was summoning his energy, and so was Gin. Gin was a Shahahid that rose to power by backing one of the most powerful Nimrahid. When that Nimrahid was killed in battle, his wishes were that Gin take his place on the Galactic Council. Of course, everyone was against this, but Haman was close to Gin's handler, the one who stood for him. And though he didn't understand why he chose Gin, he fought for him. He fought for him to be on the council. And now Gin would betray Haman in the most horrific way. Haman stared at Gin. Suddenly turning his focus to Ina, he simply said, "Run." Ina gasped, jolted by the physical pain of that memory. She held her stomach, trying to quiet the rising panic with a sudden realization that her son, the one she and Haman gave up everything for, may actually destroy this world. Ina was standing in the same spot where she left Haman to cross into Arid. It was cold on this night too, and there Ina stood, holding her breath, watching Trin Yahiri Lukin waste away. Ina watched as the wind effortlessly scattered what was left of Yahari's body across the sand into the river, the same river that Haman had carried her across so many years ago. Ryu was there with her. He hesitantly approached, standing behind her. Ryu looked up at the orange moon spreading its thick haze across the sky. This was the moon of the soul extractors, and they were in a feeding frenzy, consuming the scattered parts of Yahiri. They were holding down Yahiri's lifeless body with their jelly-like fingers, sucking out his essence. Yahiri's spirit was blue. As they breathed him in through their fingers, the soul extractor's short, puffy, translucent bodies began to glow blue. They laughed a high-pitched cry and fluttered around in circles as they became drunk off of Yahiri's essence until they spotted Ina. The intensity of her stare sent the cowardly creatures scaring into the night, still laughing their high-pitched sound. Ina had hoped she could reason with Yahiri, but Yahiri was always a stubborn one. Ryu, who was only a few steps behind Ina, slowly approached her. Ryu was Ina's constant companion, and their bond was a cherished possession of hers, as was her son Kai. She loved Kai, and she watched the wind effortlessly scattered the rest of Yahari across the sand. She thought of Kai. Kai was her pride. But how could she save him now? Ryu was still hesitant to approach Ina. She could be a temperamental one, and Ryu did not want to upset her. Ryu cautiously stood behind her, both of them covered in the ash of the Amuni, another guardian race of which Ina had gone to war with. "Are you all right, Ina?" asked Ryu. "I'm perfectly fine," she replied. "And Kai?" asked Ryu. "Kai isn't here, obviously," she answered. "It looks like we just missed him," she said. "Yahuri must have been trying to get to me. I wonder how he and Kai passed through the gate." Ryu looked in the direction of Yahari. His husk of a corpse was almost gone. With a deep sigh, Ryu asked, "Ina, what are you going to do about this? Trin, Yahari, Lucan was a seraph. When the others hear that he was defeated by Kai, there will be no saving him. The Creoles are already gathering, and once the seraph hear of this, they will send in Rahid and the Amuni." "Yahari was in a lot of pain," said Ina. "He and Kai were more alike than he could have ever imagined. I just wish that it didn't have to be this way." Ina looked at her hands. They had become rough and hard from eons of battle. She once again looked down at Yahari. "There aren't many of us left, Ryu," she said. "I think we are dying out." "Yes, Ina, I know," said Ryu. The quick change of temperament, Ina said, "Yahari's death puts me closer to the Axis, and that is the only thing that matters. Once I have the Axis, everything else becomes obsolete." "The Axis is a dangerous weapon if not used correctly, Ina," said Ryu. "Only the highest of the guardian class can control the Axis. We Kyo are not even able to control it. What makes you think you have a chance?" A deep breath, she said, "Do not speak to me about who I am, Ryu." "I know you," he said. "You have no idea who I am," she said. She loved me once, thought Ryu. But in this moment, if I pressed her, I'm sure she would attack me. Her eyes squinted, her jaw clenched. What the hell has she become? What the hell has all this done to her? To this creature that used to shine love. She used to laugh, thought Ryu. She used to sing. And there was a time when she just loved to dance. But Haman, Kai, the Creoles, this war has taken it all away from her. She will have no peace. She has no more breath. And I fear there is nothing I can do to stop her. Haman once again felt Ina's belly. "Take care of my son," he said. Ina could not look at him. She was too afraid. How was she going to survive in the outer world, in Arid, without him, without Ryu, without even Jashin? Ina went to speak, but a huge crash shook them both. Ina and Haman immediately stood and glared at the crater made in front of them. Ina was holding on to Haman as tight as she could. Out of the crater climbed a tall, well-built man. His white leather uniform was dirty and burned. He dusted himself off and said, simply, "Haman." "How good to see you," he said.